Let's talk about those dominoes as a couple,
Mm,
because one of the things that you do with Jay, which I think is really great, is you actually teach goal setting for couples.
yeah.
And so I'm wondering, you know, talk to us a little bit about when we think about going into 2020 with our family, with our spouse, how much of our goal setting time is us, what we need as men, how much of it is with our wives, how much is it with our kids, perhaps? Like, how do
Sure.
you have you seen that work?
Well, here's what we know is historically the case. Jay and I were teaching a class at a big event for Keller Williams. We had about 2,000 people in the room, and we asked everybody to stand up if they set goals every year. And every person in the room stood up, and we said, "Great, remain standing if every year you set your goals with the people who have the biggest stake in your success, whether that be a significant other, a business partner, your colleagues." Every person in the room except for 4 people sat down. And
Mm,
2 of those people who were still standing were Jay and me.
right.
We know that people set goals, but they don't actually cast a vision with the people who have a stake in their success. And so a lot of this is first and foremost going internal and saying, who are these people? And for us, we've found that if you're in a committed romantic relationship, setting goals as a couple is absolutely vital.
Yeah. So walk us through, let's get into the practicality of that. When we, so yeah, I think let's go there. Let's talk about family. Let's talk about couple goal setting.
Sure.
And I feel like that's probably more important than guys setting goals. In fact, considering my audience, I would be willing to bet that they are probably pretty proficient in that area.
Sure.
I also would guess they're pretty deficient in the couples part. So let's talk about that. What does a
Or
framework look
or
like?
or if they're doing it with their couple, their significant other, they're doing it entrepreneurially. They're relying on their natural ability they're doing the best they can do rather than doing it the best it can be done.
Yeah.
And there is a difference.
All right, so let's get into the actual framework
Sure.
of what happens with a goal setting retreat or for couples to set goals.
Sure. First, you have to understand what the purpose of a goal is. And a
Mm,
lot of people think it's to achieve a result. And Gary Keller would suggest to you that it's actually not the result. The purpose of a goal is to be appropriate in the moment, to give you a guidepost of where you're going so that you can look back on yourself right now and asking, am I actually acting and behaving in a way that's going to get me to where I want to go? It's all about who you become along the journey.
yeah.
And for couples to go into a goal setting retreat together, you first and foremost have to acknowledge that you both are going to have your own individual goals. Your goals don't have to be Tatiana's goals, John, and my goals don't have to be Amy's goals. It's more about having an understanding of what is it that's important to Tatiana in her life, and how can you support her in that? How can she have a sense of what's important to you in your life, and how can she support you in that? And then how do you collectively identify what goals you share, where
Mm,
you can go at them together? So that's because one of the biggest things we hear is either what if our goals aren't aligned, or what if my plus one is not a goal setter, which is the majority of people, by the way.
yeah.
And to answer that, it's understanding that it's actually not about making them a goal setter. It's actually about asking, how do we get out of our normal environment where there's kids running around and habits and all of these things? How do we just get into a new space where both you and I can actually dream together?
Yeah.
We can actually have a conversation about what's important to us out of life and make sure that we're on the same page and that we have a plan to support one another. That's what it is.
And backing up even more, talk to me about environment, because
Mm,
part of what I love about what you and Jay are doing is that I think how unsuccessful I've been at times. Like I hear that Jay and Wendy will go away and they'll get a hotel room or whatever. And I'm like, I just picture myself like getting into this full-blown fight with Tatiana where we don't have like somebody there to referee
yeah,
and I'm like, so talk to us about environment and the setup of that too, because I think that's really key.
sure. The first is, how do you actually prepare for the retreat?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
it's not like you just show up. The first thing you both have to do is a little bit of pre-work. If you set goals for this year, what were they? How did you do? There are some people who want to go out and get their health checked out. Maybe they'll go get their annual physical. It's a chance for them to walk in the room, not asking what are my goals for the first time, but actually casting a little bit of a vision. If you have goals, a big one in terms of relationships is money. It's the number one cause of divorce. What are your net worth goals? What are your wealth building goals? What did you spend money on this year? Did you have a budget? How did you do? There's a lot of, you can do as much or as little pre-work as you'd like, but you get out what you put in. The more you can come in so that you have all the information, so that you're no longer looking backwards, we're now looking forwards together. That's what's important in preparation. The other thing that's important is preparing to go someplace. So we're talking about the environment. Get outside your house. Get outside your office. You can stay local. Amy and I last year went downtown to the library in Austin and got one of the conference rooms because I knew we needed a big whiteboard, and we took a break and went and grabbed lunch, and then we came back and worked a little bit more. That was
cool.
that was one thing we could do. What we advocate is that you get an overnight sitter. And at the highest level, what we see people do is they will book a sitter for Friday night. They'll go and they'll just have a dinner together Friday night. They're not setting goals. They're just getting into the zone. They're starting to talk about it. They're just connecting. They're not drinking heavily. They're getting a good night's rest. Then they're waking up and they're doing the work. And then they'll probably do another hotel night that Saturday so that they can wrap things up on Sunday. And that's how we facilitate our retreat. It's a Friday night to Sunday afternoon type of thing.
So if somebody's doing this on their own, I'm thinking about the natural questions that would probably come up for somebody, and they're coming up for me too. So one is, if you were going to do a 2-day planning retreat, would you suggest that to start? Or would you say, look, if you've never done this with your spouse, start with like 3 or 4 hours and don't go 2 days?
The focusing question of the book is, what's the one thing you can do?
Yeah.
Such that by doing it, everything else would be easier or unnecessary. And the key word there is can.
Yeah.
If you can do a full weekend, do a full weekend.
Yeah.
If you can only do one night, do one night. Last year, Amy and I couldn't even get an overnight in. The one thing we could do was get a sitter during the day. And it was better than nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
So what I would ask, what can you do? And we'll share tools so you're not just winging it, so that you actually have something to go off of.
If you were going to break down, let's say that you had 6 hours. In that 6 hours, how much would you be spending looking back at what happened and reviewing the past? And how much would you be spending looking forward?
In an ideal world, you'd already be coming to your retreat having looked back.
Got it.
That would have already been done so that we can come in and now just look forward.
And do you think that at that point now, are you coming in with the past that you've reviewed that you're going to talk about together, or would you have already done that? So you hit the ground running with what's the future look like?
So for Amy and me this year, as we're looking forward to our retreat, I'll have, this is what we said we were going, our savings goals and our net worth goals were going to be, this is how we did. This is where all of our money went over the course of a year by category. Here's how much we spent versus what our budget was. This is what we made. Like, all that is going to be documented, printed, ready to go. I'm going to have our goal setting documents from the last year already printed out and updated with how did we actually do. That's all done. That way, when we can come together, we can say, all right, this is the current reality. How do we feel about that?
Yep.
Based on that, what do we need to do differently this year? Now let's focus there.
Yep.